Welcome to Wellsprings of Faith. My name is Father Liias. I am a Roman Catholic priest, live here in the Melrose community, and work at St. Patrick's Church in Stoneham, which is our next community. Our program, Wellsprings of Faith, which has now been going on for about almost 30 years, is a program about faith and the journey of faith in a person's life and the fruit of that work in the world. It's a joy to welcome to our program today Mariah McCarron. She is the regional coordinator for a wonderful movement that's grown all over the country called Students for Life, bearing a witness for the unborn on campuses and other places among the young adults of this world. And so we're looking forward to hearing her story and more about the work of Students for Life. Welcome, Mariah.
Thank you so much for having me. So great to be here.
Well, great to have you here. And as I said before the show, the pro-life movement has been a very important thing in my own life. Both kind of converting me to, because I used to be pro-choice, pro-abortion, and then actually it had a role in my becoming a Catholic in the end. So thank you for indirectly being part of that in my own life. Before we get to your work in Students for Life, I really want to hear about your life in Christ and your own journey in faith. And so tell us about that, first of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was raised in a very teeny tiny town in upstate New York called Skaneateles. A lot of people haven't heard of it. I like to say the Finger Lakes look like the back of the right hand throughout upstate, and my hometown is on the tip of the pinky.
Which one? Lake is that?
Skaneateles.
Oh, that's
Same
the lake.
Name.
Yeah.
It's the lake and it's the town.
Well, it's funny. My wife was born in one of the other Finger Lakes. She's born in Ithaca.
Oh, I think you were mentioning that.
Which of course probably more people have heard of that one because my in-laws were at Cornell in graduate school when my wife was born, so that's why she's from there.
Yep.
But anyway, back to you and Skaneateles.
Skaneateles.
Yep. How do you spell that?
Skaneateles.
Is that an old Indian name, or is it some?
Oh gosh,
you don't know.
It's some Native American name that effectively means Long Lake.
Long Lake.
So very
of course, all
named.
those Finger Lakes are like these glaciers. They're different glaciers, aren't they? The geology of those is carved from. Wonderful. So there you are, way up in the boonies. And did you grow up in a devout family?
Yeah, was raised in a very, solid Catholic household, pretty typical. Went through all my sacraments in the same little church in town.
Yeah.
Got confirmed. Just kind of, going through that. I went through a period. I studied abroad in Finland.
Oh, wow.
In high school, where I did fall away a little bit. It wasn't anything in particular. It was just me being a teenager. I was 16, 17, thinking about, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I'm living in Europe, of all places, How'd
you occasion to go, particularly in high school? I mean, a lot of kids have a junior year abroad somewhere in the other part of the rest of the world. How'd you wind up in Finland in high school?
Yeah, so I went abroad with a program called Rotary Youth Exchange.
Oh.
And in this program, they effectively choose the country for you.
Oh.
Yeah, so the way that, at least in my district, I applied, I was able to tell them, okay, here are my top 5 countries that I would love to go with these, but how it works is if you're accepted, they tell you which country they'd like to send you to, and then you accept or deny exchange, period.
Were Finland one of the 5?
At the last second, I remember I chose 5. They were all in Europe.
Yeah.
And at the last second, I'm like, I'm going to switch my number 5 spot from Switzerland to Finland. No real reason, just a hunch. And that wound up changing my life in the most amazing way. I mean, that's where I found a love of politics, which eventually guided me into college in an international relations degree. And a little bit of back and forth, but really, oh my gosh, that was such a pivotal, amazing year, and I'm so grateful for it.
Well, what happened that made it pivotal?
Oh gosh, I mean, I feel like a lot of it is just, it's getting out, it's seeing the world, it's finding other perspectives, and granted too, I was chosen for a country where I would flourish, right?
Yeah.
Where I would sort of find myself. It's funny. My mom told me later on, and she likes to joke about it because I'm quite an introvert myself.
Yeah.
So she says to the people that are interviewing her in a private parent interview, she goes, Mariah's the kind of kid that needs her space. And surely enough, they send me the most sparsely populated country in Europe. With like, oh my gosh, I was considered social butterfly over there, which was actually like kind of great.
Really?
And it taught me to
Wow.
be social because everyone's an introvert.
Did you learn Finnish? Or
I
some
did
of it?
a little bit.
Yeah.
I got to the point of I speak like a child. I like to say that I speak enough to survive in the culture,
Yeah.
but not quite well enough to hold a job, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I could definitely
Yes,
vacation, I could get
definitely,
around,
definitely.
but
Well,
I'm
it's interesting
not,
because my last name is Liias, Liias,
I
which
know.
is actually Estonian. And of course, the Estonians and the Finns are basically cousins. You know, their language is similar, and they're interesting. So, but it's a tough language to learn. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
I never learned Estonian. My mother was German, so I spoke German growing up. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, I know. I saw the surname and I was thinking that looks very
Finnish, yeah,
familiar.
yeah. Well, some people have asked me who know about Finland.
Yeah.
Because most people heard of Finland, but not Estonia. But so they'll say, "Oh, you Finnish?" Just because of my last name. But, so what else? I mean, so one, it was just your own growing up and being in this unique situation that turned out to be a source of flourishing, as you said.
Yes, absolutely.
What? And you said you kind of lapsed in your faith. Did you find your faith while you were there, or found it when you came back?
It was more when I came back.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say I had this amazing year. It definitely set me on a path that would propel me towards a future that, oh my gosh, 5 years ago, I never would have guessed that I would wind up here.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for where I am.
Wow.
But it was really after coming back, I wound up with a strong, especially in college campus Catholic community.
Where'd you go
and
to
just-
school, college?
The State University of New York, or
New York.
SUNY for
Okay,
short,
SUNY,
at
yeah.
Geneseo.
Oh, Geneseo,
So-
which is also up in the
Yep.
Finger Lakes. Okay.
Yep.
Right,
So
right.
I grew up in the eastern Finger Lakes. Oh my gosh, geography. And I went to school on the western end.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yep.
All right. Far enough away from home that you were away.
Yeah. About a day trip's distance, but
yeah. And so what? Tell us a little bit about that part of your faith journey in college. that you
Yeah,
said.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, it was so refreshing to have, this campus Catholic community, a set, space, especially with Newman Club and things like that, to just have, people. We'd have like mass every Thursday and then hang out for, spaghetti dinner. We'd go for retreats all the time. We were really fortunate that we had the Abbey of the Genesee. It's a Trappist monastery.
Oh yes, that famous place. Yeah.
About,
Right,
oh my
right.
gosh.
I think didn't Henry Nouwen go there, and he wrote a book called Genesee. I think he.
I
spent
haven't heard
there.
of that.
Yeah.
I would have to check it out.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard of Henry Nouwen. He's a pretty famous Catholic writer. He's since deceased.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But the Abbey itself is phenomenal. I mean, amazing community. We've got great priests that are just like, oh my gosh, so lively, always up for discussion, always hanging out. And honestly, it's just that sense of community that drew me closer and closer, and being around other Catholics to explore different aspects of like, oh, hey, like this thing and that thing, and being really intentional about what we're
Right.
doing, like going for, holy hours and rosaries, and like, and making it fun, or like going for retreats at the local monastery, which was like a 5-minute drive away, which
Wow.
was
Oh.
so phenomenal.
Yeah, great to have that resource so close.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And was there any particular, besides just the experience of community, any particular moments you remember where you just really did find, your faith and your relationship to the Lord just sort of coming alive?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I would say it was just kind of a gradual process.
Gradual process, yeah.
Like, I feel like so much of our human nature is rooted in community, and I'm
Yes.
so fortunate to have found mine on campus and within that community,
Right.
that it just kind of like, it crept up on me, and then it snowballed from there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
Wow. So what then, continue on in your life's journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So after graduating college, oh gosh, these timelines overlap with my pro-life story.
Oh,
But,
okay. Yeah, well, we'll get to that
Yeah,
too soon.
but-
Yeah.
After graduating college, I came home, was in a period of deciding, okay, what am I going to do? I had just graduated with a degree in vocal performance and international relations.
Oh, all right. That's an interesting mixture.
Oh, yeah. But it was really nice. I was fortunate enough to feed back into the Catholic or local Catholic community with my vocal talents as a cantor in my later years of college.
So you started being a cantor in churches? That's great.
Yeah, and what was it? I came home, I graduated December of 2020, and a few months later started working for the parish in my hometown, the same one where I have received all of my first sacraments to date.
As cantor?
Actually, no,
No,
as a parish receptionist.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
you really
as I was figuring out steps. And that's where I wound up effectively before I started working for Students for Life of America. So that's kind of my faith background up to this point is really just, I'd say.
Now, you mentioned a little bit before we went on the air and that, you know, your life as a vocalist and performance. So how did that sort of weave into
Oh, gosh.
your life here?
Absolutely. So I started off, I remember, what was it, in the 5th grade, I believe, was when I started with music. I auditioned for a school musical, you know, that cute one that they put on in elementary school with like, oh, look, the kids are doing, you know, something.
Yeah.
And I auditioned not thinking much would come of it. And a few days later, I remember my friend like comes running into the classroom and going like, Mariah, congratulations. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. And I'm like, what's going on? And sure enough, I wound up with one of 2 solos in that school musical. So
your career there started quite young, 5th grade. Wow.
A bit. And it kind of snowballed from there. I did a lot of musical theater. Leading up to my exchange year in Finland, I found a love of politics through European Youth Parliament. Decided that, okay, I'm going to be ambassador to the world. Like, this is my new calling. Which is how I got to college with an international relations degree. Decided after a semester, something is missing, and that thing is music. So I auditioned for our vocal performance program on campus, was accepted, not having had voice lessons for something like, I want to say, give or take 6 years. And now have a degree in vocal performance. I've been involved in cantoring. I was convinced throughout college my path was, I'm going to be an opera singer. That was the thing that I really wanted to do. And it wound up actually, and here's where it like weaves in with the pro-life story as well. So we're going to skirt back to my beginning college.
Yes, go ahead.
I've been what I considered quietly pro-life through pretty much all of high school. I knew that abortion made me uncomfortable, but I was simply too shy to speak to it. Until I got to college. In my very first semester of college, it was maybe like the first or second semester of the Students for Life group on campus functioning, and they sent out an email to the whole school saying, hey, does anyone want to go to the National Pro-Life March for like $40? And me being 19 years old in the part of New York that is mostly cornfields, as much as I love it, I'm like, yes, please, take me to the big city. Like, I want to see something exciting. And that is where the floodgates just opened for me. I mean, imagine, I remember stepping off of that bus. It was a red eye. It's about 8 hours-ish from Rochester to DC.
Right.
Every talking point on a sign, just a sea of people. That was the first thing. Every pro-life talking point you can imagine, like plastered on a sign in front of you. People from every background imaginable, whether it's like cultural, religious, you know, political, you name it, just all pro-life people. And also what really struck me is how young this crowd is.
You know, it's funny, I was just reading an article in the National Catholic Register, which is one of the Catholic newspapers, and there was a commentary on this year's March. I don't know if you were at this year's March, but
I was.
But then that was the thing he most talked about. I was an old pro-lifer, sort of my age. Like I've been out there, you know, fighting this battle for 50 years, and just the inspiration of seeing so many young people. You could tell it felt like he was even crying, even though it was a newspaper article. You could see he was so deeply moved by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
So thank you. You're a blessing to us old folks, the old warriors, because, you know, somebody said even Christianity is only one generation away from extinction.
Oh, wow.
You know, and think about the pro-life movement. But the opposite's happening, right? Because it's becoming a younger movement. So anyway,
absolutely.
Back to your march back
yeah.
then.
And I mean, we do say at Students for Life of America, the future is anti-abortion,
Right.
unequivocally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if we were to take like every person that comes to the National Pro-Life March as a data point and pull that into an average age, that average human attendee of the National Pro-Life March,
Right.
I don't think would have been of an age to graduate from college quite yet. Genuinely. I think I would estimate around 2021 is probably the average age at the National Pro-Life March. It's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I suspect there's not any other political movement or certainly any other political rally or march that could say that the age is so young. It's really remarkable. So
It
anyway,
truly is. Yeah.
So go on from that kind of wonderful floodgate experience, as you called it.
Oh my gosh. So we had the rest of the day just soaking in everything to do with, you know, being pro-life, being empowered in that movement.
Yeah.
And that really gave me the spark that I needed to move forward. So I continued with the club. I eventually, heading into my senior year of college, became president of that same Students for Life group. I got trained as a sidewalk advocate, got involved there, was a Hildegard Art Fellow with Students for Life of America. We have a number of fellowship programs. Actually, if this is airing before March 31st, the applications are open right now for our different fellowship programs.
Oh, great.
Yep. So I was a Hildy, as we call for the nickname for it.
Who's Hildegard named after?
Hildegard of Bingen.
I was going to say, I figured it was her. Yeah. Great saint of the church. Wonderful,
and
amazing
just
woman. Yeah.
amazing, resilient, pro-life artist.
Yeah.
Right? So I got involved with that, which is a year-long program for pro-life formation in your certain niche. In this case, students in the arts. So as a vocalist, I got involved there, did a whole recital, which was my like culminating project for the year, that was entitled On the Fullness of Happiness, which sought to answer assertions that are made that if one is to continue with an unexpected pregnancy or, you know, to parent, there are certain claims that they may not achieve, you know, happiness or fulfillment, which we know in the pro-life movement to not be the case. So I sought to explore and evaluate that claim by looking at my own repertoire from having studied vocal performance in college. Okay, here are the most brilliant, expressive musical minds, right, in all of history. I'm going to look through every single piece I've studied and pick out the ones that are pure happiness and see if I can find common threads. And sure enough, I did. Do you know what they boil down to?
No.
Human relationships. It's really, at our core, we need someone to care about. We need someone who cares about us. And we need a space where you feel, you know, safe and accepted socially. And that really is at the core of human happiness. It's just having each other. Because we were created for social interaction. We were created for community.
Yeah, as God said to, you know, in the Garden of Eden, which is interesting, before the fall, it is not good for man to be alone. And then the story of Eve, but that essential need for community, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, so I graduated college thinking, okay, I'm going to apply to schools. I'm going to be an opera singer. I graduate December 2020, start working at my local parish while I'm, you know, figuring out, okay, what's going to be the next step. And I remember during my last few months of college, around November, so 2020, I start thinking, I might be able to do this pro-life thing whole time. But I was a little nervous to admit that to myself, just because it takes so much to break into the arts. And I'm thinking, like, there was that little piece of me that knew that if I go pro-life full time, like, this is it. And kind of waiting to give my yes until, you know, I graduated. I'm, you know, figuring out those next steps. And really the question for me, the prayer for me was, okay, tell me which way I'm supposed to go, because it's either going to be vocal performance or it's going to be full-time pro-life. And, you know, the question was like, just please make it obvious.
Yeah.
Although I will say my pro-life views and my pro-life activism do stand, like, even if I were not
That's
religious,
right. Even
they would
if you
stand
were
in and of
working
themselves.
officially for the movement, you'd always be in the movement and part of it. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So waiting for that sign, I applied to 4 vocal performance programs. All of them turned me down. And I was interviewing with Students for Life of America, where I work now, and applying around to different positions. The day after I interviewed for the New England Regional Coordinator position, I was offered the job. Like the next
So it can't
morning.
be any clearer, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I asked for something obvious, and I sure got it.
4 no's and 1 yes. So that must be the yes. You know, Jesus, it says, St. Paul says, I always love, he says, with Christ there is no no's. It's always a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even, that's a good story, because you know, people who are brokenhearted because they get no's, but with the Lord, there were no no's, you know. If the God closes the door, he knows what he's doing, and it's not a no, even that's a yes, because he has another yes for you, as you discovered. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And just, this is more amazing than I ever could have imagined, moving out to
So when
Boston
did you
from my
begin
small
that work?
town. And sorry, I started in July of 21. So
Okay, so
mid-year last year.
Okay, so it's been not even a year yet.
No.
So let's talk about what do you tell us a little bit about the organization, its history, and then what you do. What exactly is your job description?
Yeah, absolutely. So Students for Life of America is a nonprofit organization which seeks to equip and empower the pro-life generation to abolish abortion within our lifetime. So let's see, I'm 25, so we've got about, give or take, 60 years. But,
Well, good.
I'm confident with this generation, and
Yeah.
just, I mean, you would be amazed.
Yeah.
According to a recent study by the Dimitri Institute, something like 8 out of 10 millennials and Gen Z, which are now a third of the electorate, want to be able to vote on abortion ruling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But this is really, it's a hot button issue for our generation.
Wow.
But
and what
yeah.
Well, this could go off. Let me finish your story. Then I want to have a few questions. Go ahead.
Sure.
So who started it, and when did it start? And the Students for Life.
Yeah. So Students for Life started off originally in the 1980s as pro-life
campus
campus groups.
So it's been around a while. Wow.
Yeah. But we've been officially under the banner of Students for Life of America since, 2006, because I remember last year it turned 15 years.
All right.
That we've been Students for Life of America, that we've been really just flourishing since then. But we've been all over the place, just on campuses, engaging communities, really getting to the heart of the issue and making sure that we're talking about this, that we're bringing things to light, and also that we're equipping communities, right? That we're building communities, we're building not just the pro-life cause, but we're loving them both, right?
Yeah.
Mom and baby, and making sure that no woman stands alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And so the vision, obviously, is to see the end of abortion in your own lifetime. What are some of the strategies of fulfilling that kind of vision that you're particularly working on?
Yeah, we actually have 5 pillars that we work on with Students for Life that we go in through a number of ways. So the first is effective education. We talk to campuses, industry impact, which is, say, like sidewalk counseling, that kind of a thing. We have Students for Life.
Industry impact, impacting the abortion industry itself, right? Okay.
There is Students for Life Action has public policy, so they work on a bunch of amazing, like, I was with Students for Life Action just last month to testify on a heartbeat bill in New Hampshire.
Yes, I remember. You were supposed to be my guest.
I know.
On the show. No, don't feel bad about it. I'm glad you're here now. But but that's an example of what you do there. Be an advocate and a witness around legislation and all.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
And then what the other?
And then 2 more. So rapid response, meaning that we are on the dot, ready to voice our stance and to be of service and supportive services themselves. So reaching out, campus initiatives to make sure that colleges are more pregnant and parenting friendly, that kind of a thing. Yep.
So generally you have chapters on campuses?
Yes. So there are groups on campuses all over the place. But
now, there is probably no more volatile and issue in our culture, and I've said, because I've been around a long time, it's the subtext of our politics, of whole political life. I think the subtext is one way or another abortion. And obviously there's, how have you dealt with hostility? I mean, you must get hostility for your work on campuses.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's tough, I'll admit that, especially for, students that are starting out, that are, just starting to take a stand.
Right.
But I think really in dealing with hostility, we have to realize that a lot of this comes from a place of hurt or simply of not knowing. And oftentimes, sure, it's a mean, comment here or there on social media. But at the same time, we're doing so much impactful work.
Yes,
right? Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
And a mind's not going to change entirely from, say, fully pro-abortion to fully pro-life in a 5-minute conversation. But we can work within each and every interaction that we have to move that needle just a little bit closer.
Yeah, and conversion oftentimes, sometimes there are dramatic conversions, but generally conversion is a process. I think of my own life. As I said, I had a kind of, I was a young Episcopal priest, because I was an Episcopal priest before I became a Catholic priest. That's why I married. And it was my pastoral ministry to women who'd had abortions. That's when I began to wake up to the damage. The damage, obviously the damage to the child and the death of a child, but the enormous damage done to women by abortion. So going back to your business of happiness and flourishing, it's one of the great lies of the devil and the abortion movement that this is good for women. And that's what really, so I'm sure just being patient and loving, like you said, it comes from hurt, and to be aware of that and to be sensitive to that.
Absolutely.
So, So unfortunately, we're almost out of time.
Really? Oh, wow.
Give a roaring charge. I don't know when I suppose you speak on campuses and talk. Give a 1-minute diversion of what you would say to a bunch of students in one of your talks.
Oh gosh. Well, I guess if we're pressed for time, I would leave you with the 10-second apologist.
Okay.
Right? That we tell people on campus. This comes from our friends at Justice for All with just a little bit of rewording from Students for Life. But simply put, speaking to the humanity of the preborn.
Right.
If they're growing, are they not alive? Right?
Yeah.
And if the preborn have parents that are 2 humans, then naturally their genetic DNA would make them a growing, living human being. And if human beings like you and me have full human rights, then why are we not affording this to them?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is the fastest way to put the pro-life stance.
Right.
But absolutely. And there are so many different ways too. I mean, we have multiple apologetics talks that I could go on about, just how to advocate for the pro-life stance, debunking common pro-abortion myths,
Right.
Oh my gosh, I could prattle on for literally hours. But,
well, that's wonderful to have also absorbed that and to kind of engaged it and to, it's sort of like, being a preacher, you got the Bible, you got the Word of God, you got the faith, you got all that, and somehow to make it into a coherent and compelling and cogent, hopefully, statement of truth, that people, that's, I think, the deepest foundation of the pro-life movement. It has to do with truth, And, well, thank you, Mariah. Blessings on your continued work with the SFL, right?
Yep, SFLA.
SFLI.
A.
A.
Yep, there you go.
What's the A?
America.
America.
Students for Life of America.
Are there SFLs in other countries yet?
No, I think we're just in
let's
America
pray there,
right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because obviously abortion is a universal problem, not just an American problem. So blessings on that. Blessings also on your singing career. I love music, and as a priest, I consider the musicians part of the tribe of Levite. You know, the Levites in the Old Testament were people who shared the worship. So I consider a special partnership between cantors and priests, and continued blessings on that. And thank you for having joined us for Wellsprings of Faith in this wonderful conversation with Mariah. I think her enthusiasm for her work is contagious, and seek God's blessing upon her. But it's a deeply important work. We're talking about life to human beings in the womb. Thank you for your work for them, and may God bless you and bless you as well.